So that was a great introduction here. Wow, Pete. I used to trade FX, and I thought I knew a thing or two about FX, but I don't know much, and as it turns out. One thing I picked up here is the idea that we have negative interest rates. And I get a lot of questions from students that ask me, what's going on with the interest rates? We here in Europe, they have negative interest rates. How do you explain this? That doesn't make any sense. I pay somebody to take my money. What's the explanation? And my best explanation is, well, you pay a parking fee to park your money in Switzerland, where it's safe, and you know you're going to get it back. That's the only potential explanation I can find. If you're really worried about your money, park it in Switzerland. You pay a fee, hefty fee, but it's safe. And that's what all the drug dealers and the criminals are doing, have been doing for many, many years, but now they actually have to really pay a hefty fee for parking their money. So my background is I teach finance, but I also ran a brokerage firm. We did a lot of FX and commodities, ran a brokerage dealer in London and Singapore. And I want to talk a little bit about option pricing today. But before I do that, I do what I do with all of my students. So first day of class, I tell them, take out your pen and a paper and write down the following. So please, take out your pen and a paper and write down the following. Ready? Do not believe anything I tell you. Outright. In fact, don't believe anything anyone tells you. Verify. Verify, right? As an academic, we need to verify information. So, that said, appreciate the paradox in what I just said, because I'm going to tell you something about options. So we're going to do two parts today. One is I'm going to show you kind of a very simple but also very powerful way of figuring out how to price an option. And the side effect of that is we'll also figure out how to use delta and what delta is and how do we derive delta without actually using calculus or partial derivatives. The second part is I'm going to share a bit of my research, and you'll be surprised to find out it's actually phenomenal. The returns are very, very phenomenal on the research we've done. Backtesting, basically the stuff that Tom and Tony have been doing for years now. So we did option strangles, we shorted them in many various permutations, and phenomenal returns, very much in the school of thought of tasty trade. So let's get started with option pricing. How much do you pay for an option? Well, to get an understanding of how to price an option, let's consider a hypothetical world. A kind of made-up toy world. It doesn't exist, but it's an abstract of the reality, just like all models are. In this world, let's assume there's a stock, and that stock is priced at $100. And in that toy world, interest rates do not exist, so time value of money does not matter. It doesn't matter. Okay? So imagine there's a stock here, and that stock can only go to two places, 120 and down to 80. So really binary kind of world. Nothing in between. Now, if you had the chance to get a call option on that stock, call option that gives you the right to buy one share, how much would you pay for that option? Okay? I'm going to sweeten the pot a little bit, and I'm going to give you a bit more information. Let's assume there's some sort of likelihood or probability. Maybe lots and lots of analysts are predicting the stock will go up. So let's assume there's a 99% likelihood that the stock will go to 120. And so the stock will go to 80 with only 1% probability. How much would you pay for this option today? Okay? I'm going to give you a little bit of time, think about it. And then I want to see, show of hands, how many people would pay $25 for this option? $25. Anyone? Going once? Twice? How about $20? I didn't see any at $25, so that's a good sign because you're all tasty traders. That means you actually understand the concept. It can't be anything more than $20. Impossible. That would be stupid. It's not possible. How about $20? Close to $20.
$19.50.
$19.50. All right. We're getting closer. 50 bucks. 15. Oh, wow. Anybody else? We have some engineers here? Okay, so the engineers should be able to figure this out. Weighted probabilities. How does that work?
Expected value
$19 and some change. Yeah. So if you do the math, technically, you would get something like this. You weight the probabilities. It should be $20 on the upside, $0 on the downside, right? But as you could imagine, that's not right. That's not the right price. The right price is $10, and that's a fair price. Why is it the right price? Why is it fair? You have to understand that from the concept of a market maker or an institution selling this option in a fair market, in an efficient market. Okay? So to see why this works, let's consider a hedging strategy that the institution or the market maker does that allows that institution to sell this option at a fair price at no risk to them, zero risk. Okay? So, today we sell the option for $10. Then we get a loan for $40. Remember, interest rates are zero. It doesn't cost me anything. I can get a loan. No problem. In fact, in some countries, interest rates even are negative, and you can actually make money getting a loan, in theory. So now we have 50 bucks. What do we do with $50? We can buy half a share. Remember, this is a toy world, and theoretical world, it doesn't exist. So we can buy half a share, right? So our position now as a market maker is we're short one call option, and we're long half a share. We call that a delta neutral or a risk neutral position. Okay? So how does that help us? And why is the price $10? Well, let's see. Scenario A, stock can go up to 120. What do? We can sell half a share. We pocket 60 bucks. Okay? Now we have to pay the option buyer $20. Why $20? Well, the stock is at 120. The option buyer bought the right to buy the stock at $100. And we have to go out and buy the shares at 120 and sell it to the option buyer for 100. So we lose 20 bucks on that deal, right? We also have to pay back the loan. But net, we're breaking even. If the stock goes to $80, we can sell our share, our half a share again. We get $40. This time the option is worth nothing. It's zero value. Why? Because if I have the right to buy a stock at $100, when I can buy it at 80, I wouldn't do it. So that option is worth zero. Okay, it's out of the money. I still have to pay back the loan, and I break even too. So in either case, an institution selling an option in a fair market while hedging their risk can do that at zero risk. And the fair price of that strategy is 10 bucks. Okay? Now, the findings are that in both scenarios, the strategy does break even. So $10 has to be the right price. It has to be the efficient price. Okay? And the value of the option is always $10, no matter how likely or unlikely the outcome is. It doesn't matter. You can go to $10, That's the right price. Stock goes up to 120, we don't care. Stock goes to $80, we don't care. $10 is the right price, and we can sell it for $10 because we're hedged. We don't have any risk, okay? Trends, either fundamental or technical, are irrelevant. They do not matter because we don't care where the stock is going, where the asset is going. We don't care about it. We're hedged, right? So an institution that hedges the option is generally indifferent about any of these outcomes. And only the cost of implementing such a strategy, the cost of setting up this delta neutral position, is of relevance. Right? So in reality, an institution will probably mark up the price, not for $10, maybe $10.50, because that covers their cost and a little bit of extra. Okay? So the next question then is to say, why do we buy half a share? Well, we established this delta neutral or risk neutral position. How do we get to a delta neutral position, and what is delta? Right? You all have heard Tom and Tony and all the other speakers, Tom and Dr. Data, talk about delta. How do we actually derive delta? Well, if you know Black-Scholes and that whole fancy math stuff, you know what a partial derivative is, and that is actually the delta position is the partial derivative of the call option with respect to the underlying. So it's a sensitivity measure. But without understanding calculus, how can we derive delta? So we can look at it again from these two scenarios, two different outcomes. So in outcome A, the stock goes to 120. Our position value as an institution is 120 times delta minus $20, right? Because $20 is the value of the option at expiration. So that's one side of the trade. Scenario B, position value is 80 delta minus 0. Why 0? Because the option is worth nothing. And we have to figure out delta. What is delta? Well, delta is the fractional amount of shares that we need. And that's when you look at your Tastyworks account, and previously you looked at your TOS platform, you would see the delta numbers in decimals, right? 0.4, 0.5, and so forth. What is that actually? Well, to get to delta, we have to do a tiny bit of algebra today, just a tiny bit. So we set these two position values as an equation, right? So 120 delta minus 20 is equal to 80 delta, and then we have to solve for delta, right? So we have a lot of engineers here. The engineers can figure this out in your head, no problem. So let's do it step by step. We take out 80 on both sides of the equation, 80 delta, subtract that. We add 20 on both sides of the equation, and then we get 40 delta equals 20. We have to divide by 40, then we have delta equals 20 over 40, and that is the same as delta equals 1/2. So here's our mathematical derivation without calculus of delta. Okay? Now, the real world is very different. The real world, of course, does not have just a binomial outcome of two stock prices, right? There's many, many prices in between. The real world is very, very complicated, but this is an abstraction of the real world. And conceptually, it is still the same thing. So the model I just showed you is actually what we call the binomial option pricing model, or CRR model, the Cox-Ross-Rubinstein model. And it has the very same assumption built in as well. It's not as popular as Black-Scholes because it takes about 30 of these time steps to build a massive tree lattice to figure out what a normal option would cost. But conceptually, it's the same, right? In reality, time is continuous, right? And the time steps are also not in discrete steps. This also continues. So when options are hedged in reality, to have this really delta neutral position, we have to continuously hedge that same position to become delta neutral. In reality, most institutions do that probably at least once a day. And you've heard Tom and Tony and the other Tom, TP, and all the other guys talk about, well, I have to make sure I have more negative deltas or more positive deltas. That's a way to manage the risk. So delta is really the factor for you not just to look at what is the probability that the option expires in the money, but how do I use the delta to manage my risk, okay? So that's one of the aspects of today's talk. The other is, a friend of mine and I recently wrote a paper called Option Strangles, and for those of you who are interested in a little bit more quant, send me an email or talk to me after the talk, and I'll give you the link and you can download it. So what we did here is not that we didn't trust these guys from Tasty Trade, but the basis and the foundation, cornerstone of science is repeatable experiments, right? So we wanted to see we don't have to trust or distrust anyone. We just want to see, can we replicate this, right, as an experiment? And so we went out and we tested option strangles from 2005 until 2018. We had daily option prices. We had about 20 to 25 consecutive positions on. And we looked at what are the possible returns if we sold options every single day and we held them until maturity, until expiration. And we actually closed them out. And we didn't buy at the mid price or sell at the mid price. We always sold at the bid and we always bought at the ask, always. So we had an implicit transaction cost, an implicit commission or transaction fee, actually, in the trades. And so what are the results? Because academia tells us, and regulators tell us, shorting strangles is probably the worst thing you can do. It's the most stupid, riskiest thing on the planet of an investor. Why would you expose yourself? Because people will tell us it's like picking up nickels in front of a steel roller, right? So can we do that without getting killed, without getting literally steamrolled? And so here is kind of a preview of the results. And we could probably talk about this for an hour, but then where's Brittany? She's going to yell at me, and I'm going to run over time. Yeah, so I'm not going to do that. But looking at the results, so we looked at different strangle positions, and we divided them up into years and into spreads around the market price. So if you look at, as an example, 2005, we had 6.06% of a return if we went out 1% away from the money. Okay? 10% gave us a 3.8% return. What's fascinating in all of this, whether we look in a year or whether we look at any individual spread around the market, every single one of these positions on aggregate made money. There were high exposures, large drawdowns in between. But even if you look at the year 2009, that was actually the best year. 2008 was one of the best years. And counterintuitive, if we go very close to the money, you would have thought we've been whipsawed and stopped out and everything. But our return at 1% away from the market was 9.25%. The way we calculated the returns, by the way, was we looked at margin requirement as a basis of cost of capital, and we used 4 times that margin requirement as our initial capital invested. And then the returns were measured against that initial capital invested. So it's actually a fairly conservative way of measuring returns. And again, the fascinating part here is, in times of crisis, it's scary as hell. But in times of crisis, implied volatility goes up. And yes, you have positions that will lose money, no questions. But you're making so much more income from shorting your options that it would compensate for the additional risk that you're taking. And also, if you do it consecutively, so as the market declines, you continue shorting strangles, that will increase your profitability. And fascinatingly also, some of the worst returns were in 2017. We had, what, 9 or 8 out of the lowest ever prints on the VIX in that 1 year. That was a horrible year for most. I mean, it was horrible for me as an option trader. The friends I know, they all suffered in 2017 because there was no volatility. There was nothing to short, right? It was really a difficult year to do any trades. And that's also really showing in our research here. So 2017, we had returns of 1.59%. The highest there was 3.9, just under 4%. That's not a great return. You know, it's not wanting me to go out and leave the house. You know, at just under 4% doesn't really do much for me. But in the years when it was really tricky, very, very risky, we had some of the highest returns. Okay? So we could talk a little bit more about this, but I want to show you something else that looks a little bit daunting and a bit scary. This is actually a regression, multivariate regression of looking at many different variables and how they would impact the profitability. So what you will see here is, I don't have a show or pointer here, but maybe I can just show you here on this board. It's hard to read, but we started out with a variable looking at the entry IV. So how high is the IV and how does that affect profitability? Well, if you look at entry IV and the premium associated with that and the put IV, our adjusted R squared or R squared is relatively low. It's about 14% or so, just under 14%, which is a low R squared. So R squared is kind of the goodness of fit of our model, right? But the minute we add delta, once we add delta into our model, the R squared jumps from 14 to 19%, just under 20%. And that's amazing because delta actually has a huge, important, significant factor on the profitability of your trades, right? So delta is important. Delta is not just, well, how does it show me my risk, but it also has a direct impact on your profitability. And then once we go past delta, gamma has a little bit more of an impact, but beyond that, it stays pretty flat. Right? So all the other Greeks, theta, rho, and vega, don't really have much of an impact. So it's really delta is the biggest factor once you see the impact of delta, and also initially the entry IV. Okay? I'm going to leave you with a couple more takeaways here. Understanding delta is really critical. It's not just a good probability measure, but also a good risk metric for adjusting your option position to delta neutral. So risk neutrality is achieved by adjusting your delta position. The cost of that risk neutral position is really a determining factor for premiums. The option premium determines the probability of the outcomes, not the other way around. Right? So we get it wrong because we think here's an option pricing model and the option pricing model actually prices the option. But no, the market maker prices the option and we use a model to explain what the resulting volatility would be. Okay? Research also confirms that beyond delta, the other Greeks don't really matter much. Shorting strangles is risky, but it is profitable if you keep your positions small and you do it frequently. Just basically what Tom and Tony are talking about every single day. In times of crisis, it actually pays to take on these risky positions. Why? Because your implied volatility is so high that you're really increasing your profitability and also your probability of success. And with that, I close. Thank you very much.